Welcome to a Crew 2 tutorial. This particular one is for the Pacific Coast Powerboat race, and this one was done in the closed beta, so some stuff may change by the time the full game comes out. But from what I can tell, it's pretty solid of how at least the boats drive. They may change what boats are faster, slower, or whatever, but in the way the boats drive, I assume there's probably not enough time to change it from now to the game's release. So I figured I'd go ahead and do a tutorial on it, because it's one of the very first powerboat races you need to do. So, in order to know how to drive those boats to help you with future races, I'd go ahead and analyze this one, because this one was unlocked in the closed beta, and I was able to get top 5 in the world in it. I think that's just the PlayStation 4 leaderboards. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's just what I'm going to go ahead and assume. But nonetheless, whatever the leaderboards were, I was top 5 in the world in it, so I figure I'll go ahead and do a tutorial for it, so y'all can know how to drive the powerboats through the main game. This one, I was higher than any other event in any other class of vehicles, so this is why I chose to do this particular one. For the main game, I may do tutorials for other vehicles as well, but I figured I'd serve the powerboats because one, that's the one that I was highest with, and two, that's something completely different. People may know how to drive cars, but well, you don't very often drive a powerboat in a racing game, so I guess it's good to maybe know how to do it. So anyway, to start off, this particular boat is the Frauscher. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'll show the name at the end, but it's the end part of it is 1414 Demon. I know Demon, I can pronounce that very well. But anyway, also to start off, this boat is tall. It seems bulky, and overall it doesn't really look all that fast. It looks more like a luxury boat than a speedboat, but honestly, this one's the most overpowered one. Mostly because of its acceleration, which I'll get to momentarily. But for now, this is pretty important if you're trying for a leaderboard run and not necessarily for money. You want to do these events if you're going for a leaderboard run on easy mode, because then you can just get by the AI that much quicker. And that's especially important in boats because you don't want to be stuck in the wake of the AI very much. I'm not really going to talk about the wake all that much in particular, just because you want to get out of it as quickly as possible. But pretty much it just slows your boat down. You don't want to get in it, avoid it, and you don't have to avoid it too long when you put the AI in easy mode. And also, this boat is completely maxed out. Obviously, it's 250 out of 250 performance points. I don't even know what it's called in this game, but nonetheless, it's maxed out. And as y'all can see here, it has a whole heck of a heap of acceleration. You get immediate nitro in this game, so remember to use it immediately. Boats obviously don't have wheel spin by default, so you can use it immediately. Also, boats are so quickly accelerating in this game. This class out of all the classes is probably the most important to know how to manage your nitro, because you're already near top speed almost immediately, so you want to make sure you manage the nitro so you're as far from a top speed when you use it. And you don't really need to use it when you're near that top speed, because there's only so fast boats can go because of friction and drag and all of that. But anyway, as y'all can see here, I'm already by the AI on the easy mode, and I'm already almost going 200 miles an hour, and that's literally been 6 seconds. 0 to 200 in about 7 seconds. That's quite crazy. And that's also wake, and that's also turning and all of that as well. But anyway, for the first bit, I go ahead and do pretty much use up all the nitro, because 0 to top speed, it takes about the point of using all the nitro to get there, but for every other bit of the course, you're not nearly at 0. So anyway, continuing on. Also, I guess I should have probably mentioned this in the beginning, but hopefully the majority of people are still watching now, because this is honestly a very important bit. You want to hold down on the left stick by default. Like, that's the default controls. Hold down on the left stick. Like, do this. because if you keep holding down on that, it makes the nose of the boat go up, and then you gain speed because it's less of the boat in the water, so therefore less friction and stuff to slow you down. But anyway, continuing on, this is a jump. In this game, all vehicles you can control mid-air. It's sort of like Grand Theft Auto 5 in that aspect. You can turn them in mid-air. And some vehicles you can flip in mid-air, not boats. But anyway, that's something that you definitely need to use here. Make sure you angle your boat a little bit to the left, so that way you can get a nice angle into the next turn. But make sure you don't hit the buoys, I guess that's what those are, on the side there. Get as close to them as possible, and then continue on for the next turn. This entire course is full throttle, but this is one of the harder turns to do it full throttle, because you have to make sure you get it well angled in there while also not hitting this edge. But if you're able to do that, you're pretty much good for a little while. And this is where it goes to conserving your nitro more. It's not all the way filled up yet, but go ahead and do use some here, because you had the turn there, and by default that slows you down a little bit. As y'all can see there, I'm going 165. Generally the top speed without nitro boats is about 195 or so. So go ahead and use a bit of nitro there to speed back up to your top speed. Continuing on, this turn's pretty easy. You don't have to do nearly as full steering motion. For all turns in general, do as little steering motion as possible to stay on the inside, sort of like any vehicle ever. And also you want to steer while keeping your stick down, like that, pretty much. That rewinded the video a little bit by default, but realistically these are easy sections or whatever. Just do that motion for turning. Obviously left or right, depending on a turn, but still that general thing. And continuing on there, those little bit that fast forward to wasn't really all that important. It's full throttle turns with not all that much steering motion. Just get close to the barriers without hitting them. This bit though is where you want to practice managing your nitro. Just memorize how quickly it refills, because I think one of the things that will be added in the main game is perks, in which some of those you can put in the nitro, where it refills quicker or it's more powerful or both. So depending on how much perks you have into it, memorize it. But this is the default with no perks in it. And you want to make sure you start using it pretty much right as it refills, but you also want to manage it so you're not empty once you exit a turn. Or for a later bit, which I'll get into later, which is probably the overall most important part to manage your nitro in. This bit though, don't really use nitro because you're already near your top speed. As you can see there, I'm going 203 from where I used nitro previously, but not at this moment. And your top speed is only about 220-ish, so you don't really need to use it now. Continuing on, just full throttle there, get again close to the barrier there, right, hitting at that little island or whatever. And then for every time you do a turn, use an amount of the nitro. More nitro, the more harsh turn it is. Like a 45-degree turn, use more nitro out of it than like a 20-degree turn. Moving on. Not too much difficulties around here. It's not too much nitro because not too much turns. This is a little bit more of a turn, so you do want to use a little bit more of the nitro. But this is another important part in which you want to memorize how to save the nitro. Because you do want to use a little bit out of this turn, because it is a turn in which you lose speed by default. But this next portion, the water changes how it acts quite a bit. After this turn coming up, which is a pretty harsh turn in general, so you want to use some nitro there, the water becomes a whole heck of a heap more choppy. Do use a little bit of nitro out of here just because it was a turn, but mostly save it for when the water gets choppy. It starts doing this after this set of buoys here, after this checkpoint, whatever. And that, without using nitro, will slow your boat down to around 160 something miles an hour. If you keep nitro going, you pretty much maintain close to top speed. So because this particular section slows your boat down more than any, this is where you want to use the most nitro. But this section is longer than your nitro is, with the default nitro of no perks or whatever. So you want to make sure you manage it to where you don't completely run out at any particular point. So that means pretty much just feather the nitro. You don't really need to maintain absolute top speed. Just do it in which the acceleration is more linear. Meaning you're going to accelerate quicker from 180 to 200 than you are 280, or from 200 to 220. So that means you want to use nitro when you're closer to 180 because you're going to accelerate 20 miles an hour quicker at that point. So therefore use less nitro than you would to 200 to 220. So memorize it in that aspect there, so that way you optimize the amount of nitro you use. Like as you see here, I'm going 170 or so then I get on the nitro and then I accelerate a bit to 200 again. But then I get off once I'm near it and then sort of just feather it at that point. About 210, get off. And then you also want to save nitro a little bit for when you're done with this section. Because even though you are feathering it throughout, you're still going to be around 180 to 200-ish depending on how you feather it. So either way, you're going to have a bit more speed to get after you're off it. I'm about 180-ish as I leave. So then I get on the nitro as I exit, and then that uses all of it. Because the next bit, you don't really need too much nitro for because it's a harsh turn. So you use up all of your nitro there to get to whatever speed you are depending on how you feather the nitro. And for this next bit, don't use any nitro for this little straight shoot because you want to save it for getting off the final turn. This turn is actually about the hardest to do full throttle because it's a longer turn and a tighter turn. As usual, you want to stay near this apex and you don't want to hit it. But in order to do that, you need to start at a pretty outside bit going into the turn so that you take it full throttle. Even when you do take it full throttle though, just the friction in and of itself slows down the boat some. So you're only going about 170. That's why you don't want to use nitro for that short shoot. So that you can use it when you get off. I've tested different points in which you want to use nitro to the end of the race. Whether it be do it right off the turn or right till you go to the line. And it makes almost no difference just because at the very end of the race you don't need to worry about what's beyond that point. You just need to optimize it to get to the line. So what I ended up doing is just save as much as possible to where I can go full nitro to the line and then have none left. Doing it right as you get off the turn or doing it right as it fills up just enough to where you empty right at the line seems to be pretty much equal in terms of time. I guess the easier way to time it would just be do it right after you get off the turn. But either way works to equal out to about the same time here. But anyway, again, I did the run out right as I get to line tactic. And I would say I did that. I ran out probably right there. And the line's right there, so that's close enough. But anyway, there you have it, folks. Cross the line. And I did it in a time of... Actually, that doesn't show the time. But I think it was a 130 point... No, that's a different one. This one was a 131.3. Road trial, I did it in like a 130. But for this boat trial, I did a 131.3, which put me 5th in the world. And then this is the particular boat I'm using, as y'all can see there. That's why I struggle with its name. I doubt any Americans can pronounce that right, honestly. I don't think I'm the only one. Frowsher? I have no idea. But anyway, the second part's easy enough. 1414 Demon. Everyone on this channel probably is fine with memorizing Demon, I assume. But anyway, as y'all can see there, it's good enough for top 5 in the world. I'm not lying about that. I did this pretty much right as the game was ending. I probably did this like 3 hours before the servers went out. I did it like an hour before I started live streaming. So I'd say I ended top 5. But anyway, there's that, folks. To sum it up, the most important parts is go down on the left stick if you're using default control, so that way your boat has its front end in the air, so therefore there's less friction. Make sure you have it fully tuned, obviously. Use this particular boat. Don't get in the wake of the other boats. Keep it on easy mode to avoid getting in the wake of the other boats if you're going for a leaderboard run. and manage your nitro in which you use more nitro coming out of sharper turns. So there you have it, folks. I hope y'all enjoyed this, learned something from it. If they do have big changes when the main game comes out and I'm still able to be fast in this particular event, I may redo the tutorial, but in the main game there's going to be a whole heck of a heap more events than this and the one other one. So I'll see as it goes, but for now, here's this. I hope y'all enjoyed it and learned something from it. And as always, yeehaw!